the human mind cannot answer. Out of reach, past all we can see, hear, and touch, beyond all we understand, lies the extraordinary. The extraordinary is the orphan boy who decided to flee war-ravaged Timor almost 40 years ago. A flight to freedom that stunned the world.
It's remarkable that he stayed alive, really. It's really remarkable.
It is the mystery appearance of 600 liters of water, which has run from this holy tomb every year for 1,000 years. There is no way the water can get in, and no explanation for its appearance.
Just move my hands around your aura and feel for any cold spots.
The extraordinary is the strange power possessed by this young woman. Power to read the secrets of the body with her hands.
Can you feel the heat coming off my hands?
Yes, I can. It feels sort of like a charge of electricity.
It is the terrifying spectre of the men in black who have haunted Dynasty star Catherine Oxenberg since childhood.
I felt my throat gripped, like I was going to suffocate. And I couldn't breathe, and I knew I was in the presence of something incredibly evil.
The extraordinary is the man the Aborigines call the Devil Man.
I've had 57 to the Death Adder. I've had 10 to the Eastern Taipan, tigers, browns, blacks, you name it. I don't think there's anything that I haven't been bitten by.
He's been bitten by snakes 146 times. Twice by the inland taipan, the most deadly snake on Earth. Just some of the stories that lie beyond our normal understanding. Tonight on The Extraordinary.
Graham Gow is a very lucky man to be alive. Good evening. I'm Warwick Moss. It is 1946. The world is still thinking of war. The memories of years of fighting around the globe are still too clear. On the island of Timor, a young orphan boy decides to escape the only world he has ever known, one of fighting and fear. And so began one of the most remarkable survival stories of modern times. A DC-3 thunders down the runway. Up go the flaps, and the aircraft slowly lifts off the ground. It's a normal takeoff, except for one thing. An 11-year-old boy is trapped in the wheel cavity.
On me turn, the wheel comes closer to me face, and I jam me against the hot exhaust pipe on top.
Pain tears through the boy's body. He's screaming, but his cries are drowned out by the roar of the engines. Despite his agony, the last thing the boy wants is to be discovered. The way he sees it, this is his only escape from the ravages of war.
Fortunately, they didn't hear me. If they would have heard me, they would have turned back and checked the plane where that scream came from.
It was August the 7th, 1946, and this story of a young stowaway survival would make international headlines and aviation history. The boy, Baz Wee, would become something of a hero. His courage and his daring would endear him to thousands of Australians. Baz Wee was an orphan who knew the horrors of war. As a young child, he lost many members of his family as the Japanese launched their onslaught against the Allies in the islands to the northwest of Australia. By 1946, young Baz had learned how to fend for himself. He'd even wangled himself a job as a kitchen hand at Kopang Airport in Timor. There, he developed an obsession that would almost cost him his life.
I was fascinated by airplane, you know, because it's such a huge thing, and take off the ground, that was magic.
To an 11-year-old with dreams of escape and adventure, these were magnificent but mysterious machines. The more he studied them, the more intrigued he became.
And I used to sit on the edge of the airport, watching the plane come, always with the wheels down.
Armed only with this scrap of knowledge, young Baz began to plan his great escape. For weeks, he watched and waited, imagining a new life in an unknown land. But, as we'll see, the plan had a near fatal flaw. By early August, Baz knew exactly what he'd do. He'd stow away in the wheel cavity of a plane and take off to freedom. Stage one was to get to the aircraft undetected. And as it turned out, that was the easy part. No one at Kopang Airport suspected a thing. After all, it wasn't unusual for young boys to be playing ball near the tarmac. This particular boy was headed for a Dutch DC-3, which was on a refueling stopover during a flight to Darwin. When he was sure the coast was clear, Baz Wee hauled himself up into the wheel housing and settled down to wait for takeoff.
You didn't have to wait very long, because after a little while I can hear footsteps and start to somebody moving around the plane.
Baz held his breath. The slightest movement, the slightest noise, and his adventure would be over before it had even begun.
I was hoping that he wouldn't look up, he would see me, see?
So far, so good. But what about that flaw in Baz Wee's plan? You'll remember, he'd never flown in an aircraft. He'd only ever seen them take off and land. And as far as he knew, the wheels always stayed down. The housing was always empty. The perfect hiding place for an 11-year-old stowaway.
Gradually, the plane is moving. I feel relief, because I'm actually leaving the place.
For the Dutch crew, everything was A-OK. They set their course for Darwin with no idea that they'd picked up an extra passenger in Kopang. All was calm in the cockpit, but in the wheel housing, it was a different story. Baz watched in horror as the unthinkable began to happen. The DC-3's massive wheel began inching toward him, jamming him closer and closer against the wall. Robert Van Oort was the engineer on the flight that day, the crewman who checked the plane before takeoff and went so close to discovering Baz Wee's hiding place.
We're flying and we're sitting at 3,000 meters, and it gets a little bit cool and cold in the cockpit.
You put the heater on, thanks.
3,000 meters above the Timor Sea and 3 hours out of Darwin. If it was cold in the cockpit, it was freezing in the wheel housing, where Baz was battling to stay alive.
It's Jam. Jam, there.
That was when the crew realized something was wrong. There was some kind of fault in the heating system. What they didn't know was that down below, Baz was crushed up against the heater duct and tangled in the system's cable, which he'd managed to dislodge. So now, the 11-year-old was in deep trouble. He was freezing. His back was being roasted by the hot air from the duct, and the engine noise was deafening. Not surprisingly, he passed out. As the DC-3 approached Darwin, the crew prepared for landing, still oblivious to Bazwee's plight. As the wheels descended, there was yet another danger confronting the young stowaway. He was lying there unconscious, and there was every chance he'd plummet through the open trapdoor of his hiding place.
When we landed on Darwin, it was dark, of course, you know, landing lights on and everything else. We landed in Darwin and everything was fine, you know. Beautiful landing. Most of the landings are at night and are beautiful, you know.
A beautiful landing Baz didn't see and almost didn't make. It wasn't until the crew went to secure the aircraft's undercarriage that they made their astounding discovery.
Come over here, help me. There's a boy in here.
We discovered this little fellow sitting in there. Well, which was, you know, which was a shock, to be honest, because you don't expect something like that sitting in there in the first place.
Jeez, how'd you get in there?
I thought, boy, how can a fellow sit in there, you know, and not getting crushed? And he didn't move, of course, and we talked, nothing happens. He was totally out.
Bring it in.
He was near frozen, badly burned, and still unconscious. But young Bazwee had survived his 3 hours of torture. Only just.
The next thing I can remember is staring at the ceiling of the ambulance.
Baz was safe, but he was far from well, and his troubles were far from over. He would spend 4 months recovering in Darwin Hospital, only to be told he was an illegal immigrant and would have to be deported back to Timor. But the people of Darwin rallied and took this brave little boy into their hearts, and eventually into their homes. Community support was so strong, the Australian Immigration Minister himself stepped in and declared that Bazwee could stay.
Every time I think about it, I get very emotional about it. To have people come and help me. I mean, how many guys would you, as an intruder, illegal immigrant, like the red carpet?
So Bazwee did find his new life in Darwin. It was there he was adopted, married, had children and grandchildren. It was there he's lived happily for the last 48 years. But a couple of years ago, his wanderlust returned, and he decided to retrace the journey he made as a child, this time in comfort. Just once, he wanted to see that old airfield at Koh Peng in Timor, his mother's grave, his old home, and the 4 brothers and a sister he hadn't met since he left Timor all those years before. It was a remarkable reunion. You see, his family never knew of his adventure. To them, he'd simply disappeared from the face of the earth. Like everyone else who's heard Bazwee's story, his family were dumbfounded, absolutely amazed by his audacity, his endurance, and his good fortune. Sentiments echoed 48 years after the event by engineer Robert Van Oort.
It's remarkable that he stayed alive, really. It's really remarkable.
While science can tell us the temperature on Venus and the gravitational pull on Mars, while it can pinpoint the prehistoric era of man and dinosaur, there are some things that defy all the efforts of modern logic. Here, on the eve of the 21st century and the so-called electronic superhighway, you'd think someone could find the source of the water that every year fills an ancient marble tomb in the shadow of the Pyrenees Mountains.
The tomb is 1,000 years old, and it sits in the shadow of the old church in the tiny village of Arles-sur-Tech, in a valley of the eastern Pyrenees in the south of France. To the 3,000 villagers who have witnessed the miracle, it is known as the Magic Tomb. It has been credited with curing illness, removing pain, and a host of other unexplainable feats. But it is not the healing power that is the true miracle of the sculpted marble vault. It is the water. Pure crystal water, 600 liters of it that pour from the tomb each year. Water from nowhere. It has been pouring from the tomb since the relics of 2 Persian saints were placed inside on October 24th, 960 AD.
The first time you see the water run, it's very impressive. When the priest used to put a siphon in and the water poured, you would have really said that it was a faucet, a natural spring. And it's quite an amazing spring. It's a wonder that sparks your curiosity, even if you are a bit skeptical, because it is abnormal for water to come out of a tomb.
The water does not come from seepage. There is no way it can enter the tomb, which sits on small pedestals above ground and separate from the walls of the church. Yet for 1,000 years, the 300-liter tomb has given out twice its own volume of pure water every year. The people of Arles-sur-Tech all have bottles of the holy water in their homes and faithfully use it to cure everything from colds to bad luck.
In every home in Arles, you'll find the holy water, whether it's a religious home or non-religious. Everyone has a bottle of the holy water.
To this day, the townsfolk have gathered every July 30th for a procession to honor the patron saints of the village whose relics lie in the tomb. After the procession, a mass is held, and as part of the ceremony, the parish priest, Father Augustine, distributes a few liters to those who have come from all over France to attend the service. There is a distinct ritual to using the holy water that has been observed for 1,000 years.
We use the water for 9 days at a time. You say a prayer, and most of the time, at the end of the 9 days, the pain has disappeared. You feel much better.
One of the village's men, Jean-Pierre Verge, tells of his experience just after World War II, when as an 8-year-old boy, he was seriously burned during a fire jumping game with other children.
I saw my grandmother rub down my legs with the water. My legs were badly burned with hot coals embedded in them. She prayed and rubbed my legs with the holy water, and I healed very quickly, and I didn't have a scar. Good Lord, it is hard for me not to believe in the power of this water.
The tomb measures 1.75 meters in length, 47 centimeters across, and 50 centimeters deep. At the bottom lie the relics of Saint Abdon and Saint Sennen, brought from Rome in the 10th century. In the Middle Ages, the miraculous water was drawn from the tomb with cloth, but in the 18th century, a local priest fitted a small copper siphon through a crack between the lid and the base. Year after year, without fail, 600 liters pour from the spout. Through the centuries, several investigations have sought to either explain or debunk the miracle of the never-ending water.
Les premières, c'était pour prouver, bien sûr, qu'il n'y avait pas de supercherie.
The first investigation of which we have written history was in 1529. In that year, the troops of Charles V came through Arles, and they drew water from the sarcophagus during their stay. Over a 2-week period, they drew water 3 times in excess of the quantity it could hold, according to the texts we have. There was a second investigation in 1587. A non-papal visitor came to ensure there was no trickery involved. He had the sarcophagus moved. He had it brought out and opened. And he saw with his own eyes that there was no canal in the supports. He verified that there were no cracks, so the water could not have come up from the floor. He thought that maybe if there was a stream under the sarcophagus, the water could have come up from underneath. This argument was proven wrong in 1587. So the mystery lives on, and we are certain of only one thing. The water is not brought in. It's not introduced surreptitiously, which would suppose terrific trickery of 1,000 years. But there is water.
Others have opened and cleaned the tomb in search of an explanation. Each time, the water returned within 8 days. The most recent investigation in 1958 lasted 2 months and produced no explanation. Today, the water in the tomb of Arles-sur-Tech retains its name, the water from nowhere.
Show together, we come across people with remarkable stories. Some write letters, others are uncovered through our research. Then there's the case of a young woman named Melissa. A friend suggested she had a rare gift. She could read people's auras. From a single meeting, she could tell total strangers all about themselves. Here's what happened when producer Richard Willis went to meet Melissa at her home in Tasmania. At the time, the meeting was recorded for research only.
Just move my hands around your aura and feel for any cold spots, which you may get headaches or I'll pick that up. Right, you get lower back pains just in here.
I do.
You must lift weights of some kind because there's always tension in your arms just here. Can you feel the heat coming off my hand?
Yes, I can. Feels sort of like a charge of electricity.
You really hurt your right hip just there at one time or another. Sometimes it aches and gives you trouble. With your left leg, it's more on your thigh. You've got clicky knees. And you've always got cold feet, hey?
It's got cold feet, especially in Tasmania.
Melissa was 21 last birthday and has a regular job as a hairdresser. She told us she's been seeing, hearing and communing with spirits for as long as she can remember. But only recently has she been able to harness these powers into the art of aura reading. That's how she was able to tell our producer, Rick Willis, about those ailments, even without touching him. Melissa says it's all a matter of her sensitive fingers picking up temperature changes which in turn indicate where the problems lie. But how accurate was she in Rick's case? And remember, this wasn't a planned consultation.
Rick and Melissa had never even met before the filming began.
The things that you were absolutely correct with was the back pain, definitely in that region. I have it all the time, although it's been correcting. I work out with weights, so the upper arms is what you felt without ever touching me. The headaches I get, I believe, are tension headaches. But I get them as much back here as I do here. So I don't know whether they're related or not. The hip and the left leg, which you pointed out, were an accident, a ski accident.
But there was more. According to Melissa, she and Rick were not alone. There was another presence, Rick's personal guide through life.
His name is John. He's got a long beard, comes down to here. He's been with you all this life. He's behind you. The way you're able to see him is to adjust your vision of your eyes, look into your mind and see the first vision projected.
Rick too says he felt something or someone was there. So Melissa asked him to describe this invisible guide called John.
Grey hair.
Yes.
He seems to have a robe and sandals.
Yes. What colour's the robe?
It's a purpley... I think it's got purple in it. I think it's not bright, it's dull, it's a dull colour.
That as well as another colour.
White, I think or an off-white. I think it is.
Yep, the colours he's wearing are brown, cream and slight bits of purple. Can you feel it? Run your hands around, just let your hands flow.
There he is.
You can feel it.
I can feel something.
Yes, they're not hard to feel, they're not. I had a visit from an angel a couple of weeks ago, come over here. So, my hands in my rumpus room were icy cold. I went over to him and I put my hands in his energy field and they went red hot. Red hot. Your hands will go really hot and clammy and sweaty and you'll start to feel tingly and you'll probably feel shaky because it's the energy that he's giving off to you, you see. It's not on your frequency and your body is adjusting to it at the moment.
So what does your guide do? What's your guide?
He helps you, like, you'll be driving along the street and you'll hear a voice in your head, there's police up ahead, and you'll think, don't be so stupid, and you'll think that was me. You go up the road a bit further and there's police up ahead and you'll think, oh my God, why didn't I listen?
So I suppose the question arises, what can Rick do about his ailments? And is there any way his guide John can help?
So you look inside here, just visualise inside your body, and can you see a dark spot just there where you get all your aches and pains? You'll see dark spots. Fill it with white light. Fill it. And you concentrate, you're not there. And you'll find that after a while, a few weeks maybe, these tensions will be relieved. And you'll feel, if you ask John too, like, just again, just to put his hands there on your forehead, wherever the pain is, and just relieve it for you. I feel you coming forward. Yeah. My hands are drawing you down.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. It's like I was swaying.
Yeah. It's because the energy in your aura is being adjusted to suit John's, like he can connect with you now and say, look, don't do this sort of thing. You can't do that, and you'll say why, and he will tell you the exact reason.
It's now several months since that meeting. Rick tells us that John is still around, still seems to be a kind of comfort he can't explain. And as for those recurring headaches, they've completely disappeared. In coming weeks, we plan to see more of Melissa. She'll test her skills on total strangers. Our celebrity story this week comes from an attractive blonde lady who you will no doubt recognise from the long-running Dynasty TV series. She's a lady with a royal heritage and curiosity about the meaning of life. The two things that stand out about Catherine Oxenberg, apart from her beauty and that certain regal aura, are her mothers. The mother television viewers know best from Dynasty is the one we love to hate, Alexis Carrington, played with razor-sharp claws by Joan Collins.
I paid for them all.
The other one, the real one, is Princess Elizabeth of Yugoslavia, second cousin of Prince Charles. It's this royal connection that helped land Oxenberg a couple of roles as Princess Diana in the TV movies The Royal Romance of Charles and Diana and Charles and Diana Unhappily Ever After.
I love the fact that my background is so incongruous, that my mother does come from royalty, and that I was brought up on the periphery of that milieu, really never feeling the direct responsibility of what it meant to be royal, and yet really being able to observe at proximity the stress of that lifestyle. And it never had any glamour for me because I knew the behind the scenes. I would imagine it was the same way for a child who grew up in Hollywood, you know, the son or the daughter of a great star. They would know everything that went along with that, and it wouldn't have much magic associated with it. It's ironic because people have always presented me as the princess, and I completely grew up on my own. I've supported myself since I was 17 years old. I'm tremendously self-motivated and have never, ever felt that I fell into that spoiled little rich girl persona, because I really haven't.
Although accepted at Harvard University to study philosophy, she postponed enrolling to earn her tuition through acting jobs, but she still reaches for the meaning of life.
I learn a lot through my dreams. I get a lot of signs through my dreams. And there was one recurring dream that I had, and I knew my life would change up drastically when I had that dream. And it was a dream where the whole sky was filled with shooting stars. And everyone's attention was diverted from their mundane activities to this celestial happening. I started having that dream about 4 years ago. And when I was in Mexico in December, I was outside on a balcony with a man, and he said, because I was looking for an answer in my life at that moment, he looked at me and he said, I'm going to ask for a sign. I'm going to ask for 3 shooting stars. And I looked at him saying, he's worse than I am. I can't believe this person would say that. It's a sort of ridiculous thing that I say. And everyone goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. And boom, 3 shooting stars. And he said he had his answer, which was the answer to whatever problem I was dealing with in the moment. And then the whole sky filled with shooting stars. And all night, it was an incredible, phenomena of a meteor shower that lasted. I just slept outside and watched. It was exactly like my dream. My life did start to change.
Catherine remembers another experience that took place on a beach in Portugal.
And I was sitting on a beach, and I was having the most extraordinary, transcendental experience on this beach. I just felt totally at peace, in pure meditative state, just completely at one with the universe, just like I wanted nothing. I was completely content, a rare moment. And I opened up the book at where I'd left off, and the book started at the chapter, and it said that the character had traveled all the way across the world, and it ended up on a beach in a little fishing village called Cascais, Portugal. And I was sitting on that beach. And he started to describe the exact experience that I was having in that moment.
But not all of her experiences have been pleasant. There was a night during her childhood that haunts her still.
I had a visitation with what I call an apparition that was a very dark energy that I called as a child the men in black. And I didn't know what it was, except subsequently a lot of friends of mine have collaborated. My report, corroborated that they have seen what they called the men in black. And all I know is that this figure stood halfway across the room, and it woke me up. And I felt my throat gripped, like I was going to suffocate. And I couldn't breathe, and I knew I was in the presence of something incredibly evil. And I was 10 or 11 years old. It was all I could do to muster all the energy to crawl on all fours up 2 flights of stairs past it to get to my mother's room to say that I thought I'd seen a ghost. Interestingly enough, the father of my child told me when I met him that he had seen, as an adult, he had had a visitation from what he called the men in black, 3 of them who had appeared at his house in Malibu at the end of his bed, and he felt his knees buckle and like he'd lost all the strength in his body, like he couldn't move. So, I know it's very eerie, but who knows whether that is a form of extraterrestrial or a form of the darkness, and whether, who knows? Who knows? I feel like I'm lucky I'm alive. That's how frightening it was. I feel like this energy was so powerful it could have sucked the life force out of me.
Aborigines call him the Devil Man. Doctors and scientists call him a medical miracle. He's been bitten more times than any man on earth by venomous snakes. 146 times, in fact, and lived. He's been bitten by the most poisonous snake alive, the inland taipan, twice. Graham Gower is also called very lucky.
One of the largest, rarest...
The Aborigines around Darwin call him Devil Man and treat him with respect. Paul Hogan called him in to handle all the snakes in the Crocodile Dundee movies. And let's face it, less intrepid souls might just call him foolhardy. But 53-year-old Graham Gower sure knows and respects his snakes. And you understand that respect part when you visit his reptile park at Humpty Doo in the Northern Territory and discover how many times he's been bitten by venomous snakes.
The snake that I've been bitten by most is the death adder. I've had 57 to the death adder. I've had 10 to the eastern taipan. I've had 2 to the inland taipan. And the others are broken up amongst just about everything else. Tigers, browns, blacks, you name it. I don't think there's anything that I haven't been bitten by.
The grand total is 146 bites in the last 30 years. And we should mention that Graham's the kind of guy who only counts the potentially deadly ones. Really deadly ones, like tiger snakes.
I still unhesitatingly say that the closest I ever regard that I've been to death was from a tiger snake bite, and I was only 24 years old at the time, super fit, super strong, and I've no doubt that the same bite today I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't get through it.
Just for the record, he's also the only Australian who survived a rattlesnake bite. That was when he was reptile curator at Sydney's Taronga Zoo. A rattler's dangerous enough, but not the most deadly snake in the world. That dubious honour, in fact, goes to an Australian, the inland taipan, the very snake that Graham's nursing now. A pretty remarkable scene, and even more remarkable when you remember that he's actually been bitten twice by an inland taipan. And the most serious bite, the one he was really lucky to survive, was inflicted by this little lady's mother.
My bite was a kiss, what I'd term a kiss, in that she grabbed me, mistook me for a mouse, and the reason for that was that I'd been handling dead mice and I had the smell of mouse urine on the hands, so she went straight to the source of the smell, realised she had the wrong thing and let go, so it was a kiss. Now that kiss took 2 years to get over. I have no hesitation in saying that if one of those hung on and chewed, or if that bite had been a couple of seconds longer, I'd be a statistic.
Almost the kiss of death, you might say. But if you're Graham Gower, nothing to get too worked up about.
I can remember an off week that I had here, or the worst week that I've ever had, where I had 2 death adder bites earlier in the week, one following the other, and I wasn't too flash. with those, no anti-venom. I just put up with them as I normally do. And then I got bitten by a copperhead, and that's major drama, that was. And I just started to get over that. I had about 12 really bad hours after that bite, and I just started to get over that. And I got cleaned up by a blue-bellied black snake.
But there's more to Graham Gow than the showman. On the serious side, he's published a couple of dozen scientific papers and 5 books about reptiles, and he's seen as a walking miracle by snakebite experts. He's a regular here at the Menzies School of Health Research in Darwin, where Dr. Bart Curry has been able to study his unique resistance to what should be deadly snake venom.
There's some evidence from some of the studies we've done that he may have a degree of immunity to some of the snakes that he's bitten by. However, the snakes are so potent, so powerful, our snakes in Australia, that it's not possible for him to have a full immunity. So he's still at risk of dying if he has a significant envenomation and doesn't get appropriate treatment.
But surely, after all he's been through, Graham must have suffered some after effects. Well, he does admit it took him 2 years to fully recover from the brush with the taipan, the one he calls the kiss.
Well, I started to disappear in size after that bite. I started to suffer what I call muscle tissue death. So where I could still pick up a Besser block in each hand, where 5 years ago I could walk up and down this block 3 times with them without putting them down. I'd be lucky to walk 30 feet with them before the muscles break down. So definitely muscle damage, see.
146 bites that could have killed a lesser man. Thousands more that he hasn't even bothered to register. And still, every day at Humpty Doo, you'll find Graham Gow, the Devil Man, with his 500 cold-blooded friends. Some of the deadliest creatures on Earth.
It doesn't faze me at all, although you never know whether 146 might be the one. It's my life. I couldn't live without my snakes. I wouldn't want to live without them.